Hi everyone, welcome on the official podcast. My name is Oleg Sapishchuk.
And I am Peter Schmalfeldt, and today we're recording episode number 9. We're far along in here. We got 3 different time zones today, Oleg. I'm pretty happy about it. I know it's 8 o'clock a.m. where I am, where our guest is at is 1 o'clock p.m., and then it's 11 o'clock, or sorry, it was 1 p.m. where Rob's at, and then 11 o'clock p.m. where you are. That's insane, man. This is probably the most diverse time zones I've ever worked with. So, could you introduce our guest for us?
Sure. Today we have Rob Smith. Rob is an amazing guy who I know from my previous company. So I'm really glad that he agreed to become our guest. Today we are going to talk about, let's be a secret for now. Rob, maybe if at first we can you can introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you are doing, and how you actually landed up with Salesforce Commerce Cloud.
Yeah, sure. No, very happy to be here. So Rob Smith, Executive Director of Commerce at OSF. It's a job title that's quite useful, actually. It means I can be in any meeting and no one really questions why I'm there because it doesn't really mean anything. But what I actually do day to day is that I'm a delivery center director. So look after a portfolio of clients and projects on Commerce Cloud, B2C. And we tend to have a small reputation for pushing the boundaries of the platform a little bit every so often. So that's what I do. How did I get here? I started off as a developer. Well, I don't know whether I call myself a developer or a kind of hacker of code together. Previously starting in classic ASP, if anyone remembers that. Most people won't. Then moving on to PHP. And then as we hired some more developers, we kind of tapped out. I tapped out of development because I just wasn't quite good enough. But somehow I became a B2C certified architect along the way anyway. And so I like to deal with the solution side of things. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, it's true. Who doesn't code very well, they become the architects. I know it from my experience. So that's the difference. Okay. Today's topic will be the unicorn projects. What are those unicorn projects? We usually, initially, let's say, those projects that doesn't look like regular fit into the platform landscapes. But if you get the right solution in place, you can get really amazing performing platform and really good value for the business. So with that, Rob, what is your experience? What kind of those unicorn projects you had to deal with, and why actually they came into, let's say, Commerce Cloud world?
Yeah, I think it's a really good topic. When you look at all the different kind of clients that use Salesforce B2C, there's obviously a really heavy concentration of retail in there and just kind of standard apparel case studies. So we're selling a t-shirt, we're selling a dress, we're selling a pair of shoes. We've got to put those things together, maybe in some bundles, but that's about as complicated as it gets. And the only kind of complex part of any of those projects tends to be maybe a little back-end integration to an ERP or something like that. For whatever reason, projects came across my desk that were slightly unusual at different times. And instead of just thinking, well, maybe this isn't a good fit for Salesforce B2C because of this, whatever it is, data model or whatever you want to describe, I thought of ways that we could instead try and use B2C. How could we use each of the different components to still execute the solution, but as you say, still make it really performant and not actually break the system? We're just kind of bending the system maybe a little bit, and that's the way to go. And fortunately, I also have a team around me that are prepared to accept those kind of challenges. And so now they do exactly the same kind of thing, right? I think most people in the middle of the project might kind of go, why are we doing this exactly? But at the same time, we tend to get to a pretty good result. So today, I've got a few different examples that I can talk about. And I might start with one of the museums, maybe.
Okay, well, we can start from museums, but when you say that, when you said actually that you're on the front, I remember Star Trek. I hope you guys watched Star Trek, and there was the ship was called Discovery. They were on the front line, right? They were going when no one were haven't been before, and then you are there, you're like opening new worlds. So you kind of, you're like a captain of that ship that actually going somewhere that no one been before. And it was like with the grocery a few years ago. Who actually could think about that grocery could run on B2C Commerce Cloud? Right now, the like number of customers through the world that actually running very, very performing B2C commerce websites. I mean, it's actually, when I say websites, I think I'm like underrating. It's not even websites, really like digital channels that even got into the news. I remember I saw somewhere the French article about one customer that was like, they were performing huge because of also the COVID, but because of the capabilities that B2C Commerce Cloud provided to them. But let's go back to the museum as of now, right? So you said museum, like, what does museum sell? They sell like their products? What then there is products when we think about the museum?
So Tate came to us because they had a brief that wanted to bring together their revenue streams. So they had a few different ones. So the first one is actually tickets. So these are timed and dated, and even ticket types, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. They have membership, which is the ability to buy something that then renews on a yearly basis and continues. Then you also have just standard retail products as well. And even there, things are not quite as they seem, because their best-selling standard retail product is a custom print, which is actually pick a print, pick a size, pick a various other different aspects. So 3 different things. And why did they come to us? They came to us because they really needed one platform to do all those things. They could have got their ticketing provider to do tickets and membership to do membership, but they needed an overall view so that they could provide a really good customer experience. So that's where it started. Shall I?
Yeah, just a question. Like, when you say ticketing, does it mean like if I had an event, does it mean I have unlimited tickets, or like, and when there are tickets, are there also like some seats? It's like, I don't know, or it's just like regular? Because I'm trying to imagine, if let's say it's a museum, they have an event, and maybe they have even the chairs. Is the solution also include some kind of reservation of the seats, or it was just like through the event?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the trouble starts, really. Fortunately, it isn't a kind of seated as in row F, seat 3, because a lot of the events that they run are what is known as exhibitions, where you have a big open gallery space that people walk around. However, there are definitely inventory issues. They can only let so many people in. So the data model is that you have one exhibition that could run over easily a year, so 365 different days, say. It's open from 9 p.m. until, say, 6 p.m., but it can be different hours on different days. It's split up into time slots, which are normally half an hour each. And then after that, you can buy different ticket types for that time slot. So adults, children, senior, student, all that kind of stuff. So that's the data model that we needed to put into Commerce Cloud.
Question: how many inventory files did you had? Like,
it's not as bad when you actually break it down. So, for instance, to get into the data model in Commerce Cloud terms, there's no way the normal variant model can cope with that, right? If you multiply 365 by 24 time slots by all those ticket types, the variant model is about 15,000 max variants, something like that, 15,400 or something like that. Anyway, you end up with something that's 200,000 or so. It's too big. So what we ended up doing instead is that each exhibition was a category, each day was a product, each time slot was a variant product, and each ticket type was a product option. So you had to, you're still using the same data model, right? So it still works and it's still performant, but you've really split it down into lots of different things, and you just have to do a lot of front end work to hide the complexity. I.e., you don't want to visit a category and just have the days all listed in order. That's obviously going to suck. It's going to look really bad. So instead, we put a nice calendar widget. So it was a category, but it was a really sophisticated rendering template that split that all down. Unfortunately, on the inventory side, a child is counted just like an adult. So inventory could still sit at variant product level, at time slot level, and that enabled us to kind of massage this data model and make it work.
What does your process look like for bringing on a new client like this? It seems like you probably have this fine-tuned where if you're taking on these unicorn type projects, and somebody's going to be coming to you and asking you to stretch the what Commerce Cloud can actually do.
Good question. It's not necessarily a particularly interesting answer, I don't think, in that we follow almost our normal kind of process where we do have a discovery period at the start of the project. However, before that discovery period, obviously we need to produce estimates, we need to do all the pre-sales side of things. And so there's a fair amount of brainstorming that takes place to vaguely understand how we're going to make this match, right? Or how we're going to execute this. With Tate, I think I have to probably admit that process might not have been quite as diligent as maybe it should have been. It was probably more about confidence than it was about certainty, as in, yeah, I'm sure we can make that work. And it was only when we actually got into the project that we kind of went, ooh, this is a little bit harder than expected in terms of the data model, particularly. But I think something of that is to do with my background and also some of my team's background in OSF, in that we've not always been Salesforce Commerce Cloud on its own. If you roll back kind of 10 years, plus we were making bespoke solutions already. So one of our clients in the UK was Laura Ashley, who sadly are no longer trading, but they used to have a made-to-measure business. And that made-to-measure business was about, take a pair of curtains or a blind. It was kind of like, I've got this window, and we now need to sell them online a window that's a blind that's this wide, this tall. I want the slats to be this big. I want it to be this color. I want it to have strings this side, not that side. All of these kind of different options. And we built a system from scratch to do that. So because of that background, we kind of looked and went, we can probably do most things, even if we have to do some stuff off platform to enable it. But as it turns out with Tate, for instance, we didn't need anything off platform for the main selling process.
Rob, you reminded me of my friend back in Japan. I remember 3 years ago, we had just a walk on the street. We were walking and talking about the architecture and generally what good architect, who is a good architect, and what he has to know and how he has to design. And that time I had my own vision and perspective that good architect is the architect who knows the platform very well. He knows exactly what are best practice, all this stuff. And my friend was arguing with me that actually it's not that very good architect should not know the platform. He should not know how actually it's working. He should know solutions and how the business problem has to be solved. Because when he knows the platform very much, he could be biased by the platform itself. So when I hear you, it's actually like, it's reminding me that kind of thinking that my friend had, because with the greenfield project that you had, you can go outside of the box that you usually go with the regular projects. If you work all the time with just typical SFCC projects, it's hard for you to look outside of the box and find some nice solutions. But as you said, like with having those greenfields, your team already had a confidence that we can do everything, right? And yeah. I guess I just like a question to Peter. Peter, how is it with you? Because I know you also have this years of non-SFCC experience, right? And how that helps you to craft SFCC solutions as well, like let's call them unicorn solutions.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, my background is similar to Rob. Actually, I started with PHP and built apps, and I had a kind of like my own store for making pretty much the same what Rob's talking about, being known as a company that can make really random things that are supposed to be impossible. And that transitioned into mobile and user experience things. And so my background is a lot more in that kind of stuff. So the weird aspects of Salesforce are more going to be like optimal user experiences and like performance based things that are supposed to be like example like how when you load a bunch of items on a page on mobile, like the having just some basic performance related stuff. But I've had some of the customers know that that was my background, and then have ideas for like how do you go about doing X. And so an example would be like they had a design team, and they really wanted this concept to see if it was possible to do it. And where it was as you scrolled, they had this parallax effect at the top of the hero section at the top, where somehow they can manage that as in their with their content team, where as you scroll they had multiple layers and they can apply their own effect and do their own like really interesting artistic stuff. And so I did like a mock to show them how it could work. And then really it would just be like a matter of creating a new kind of content asset that would have different types of layers of images and things like that. So it was more of just like I know you've got a design background and you've got a development background. There's this thing that we think would be really interesting. Isn't really the current solution for this. Is there something that we can build that is a little outside of the box, thinking on like for our own style and brand that we can incorporate that. So I've been getting a lot more of that kind of stuff, where just people know I can build really weird things like that. And then how would I do that with Salesforce? Because it's not normally something that they would do, but it does tend to lean more towards like visual and like just custom things that somebody wants to build. Obviously the tooling too that I've been building it's like to solve problems. That's another thing that I've been doing too. So, but yeah, that's more my actual background.
That's
true. I think Oleg, what you were saying about an architect not having to, do they need to know the platform or not? I think it's a really interesting balance, because if you didn't know the platform, you definitely couldn't massage the data model to make it work, right? And you could agree to something that just is stupid. But at the same time, there is generally a way to do it. I mean, the more we get into headless solutions now in the future, the possibilities actually have opened up really just very wide, right? We're not constrained anywhere near as much as we used to be. Clients are much more happy to go down a headless route. The cost of doing a headless project is much less, because more people understand the technology, React, etc. So I think the future is actually going to be even better for this kind of stuff, because then you're just using the commerce platform as it should be. But at the same time, if you didn't know the platform, you wouldn't be able to go, oh, do you know what? Not many people know about generic maps or mapping managers. And actually, they're really useful for lots of different things. But in a standard retail case, you'd never come across them. So, I don't know, a little bit of both.
Okay. I mean, I agree. I guess my point over there was that if you do just Commerce Cloud and you're an architect, you should spend your time not only for Commerce Cloud, you should actually spend some time learning other stuff. I don't know, spend your time, learn how actually what Magento is doing. Spend your time, look at Spotify, what actually is, some Spotify architecture, other stuff. Look what actually Facebook is doing with their DevOps pipelines, and I don't know, just expand your knowledge and think about maybe some out of the box solutions. You mentioned 3 projects that you have, you can actually share with us. One was a museum. Another 2, like, are they involved in some digital projects? Because for me, I mean, when I think about non-typical Commerce Cloud projects, I also think about some digital projects, like maybe non-physical stuff that you can deliver, but maybe it's not like something that you ship, but it's something that you actually, you just download or get it, like some keys for the games, other stuff. Are there like other 2 projects, something related to it, or it's something different?
Well, I can talk about them, and then you can pick where you want to go. One of the other ones is V&A Museum, so it is another museum, but I was going to talk differently about that one. I was going to talk more about the integration side, because actually, as much as you establish a really great data model inside Commerce Cloud, if you can't get the data in the right format, in the reasonable to fit your data model, then obviously you're broken. The other one is Gatwick Airport, which is a parking solution. So that is, and it's got order, amend, and cancel inside it. It's got, the data model is even more crazy. So maybe we talk about that one a bit later. I don't know.
Okay, so question is, so the biggest challenge with unicorn projects is data model or something else? Because what I heard so far is like I feel at least that the most challenging part is how you actually trying to connect the business processes and like what they have in terms of the data to the Commerce Cloud, or it's not, or it's maybe something else.
No, I mean, in effect, if you can get it in a way that's going to be performant and that you can work with, and then you can get it out, orders and products and stuff in a way that's understandable for back-end systems, then you're okay. But the key is establishing the data model and then trying to connect the two sides effectively. So in V&A and Tate, to be fair, they're both very similar. We have a process for tickets, because that ticket model is pretty involved. And the data structure inside the ticketing system, because they do have a back-end ticketing system, is not the same, right? They don't look at it that way. They look at it in a similar way, but not the same. So Tate, for instance, has the museum at the top of the hierarchy, and then you have kind of the exhibition, and then you have performances of that exhibition, which is like time slots and stuff like that. But it's not a match, right? So what we had to do is set up a middleware, a set of microservices that sit inside Azure, and those microservices once a day, in the case of products, absolutely smash the ticketing APIs to gather all that data, transform it into Commerce Cloud, and merge that XML in. So we make XML still, because it's the fastest way to get it in. And those files, XML files that we import, are several hundred megabytes, and they take about 200,000 plus API calls to generate. It takes some time, right? It's pretty heavyweight stuff. But that's what we needed to do to get the data models to match. So again, like you were saying, Oleg, I think most of our best developers in some way experiment or have some other knowledge. Either they came from PHP, or they like React and they do a bit of that on the side, or they're starting to play with GitHub Actions, or anything like this expands their knowledge and enables us to therefore go, do you know what? The best way to do this is put a little microservice in Azure. Let's not try and, no one would think to make 200,000 API calls from Commerce Cloud, right? Not going to do it.
I'm with you. I know some customers from mobile domain who actually sell mobile devices, mobile plans, home internet, other stuff, right? So from that domain, they also have Commerce Cloud, and they have a similar design, as you said, with the middleware to change the data, because they have, let's say, master catalog, and for the catalogs, it's not just what you as a customer see on the product, but there are other configurations, right? Like modem at home, what modem you have, which ID it has, which cables actually it's using, to which, I don't know, satellites, what satellites ports we have to enable, other stuff, which databases, I have to issue financial account, other stuff, right? There is so much complexity behind that. So you need this kind of transformation layer to simplify the data that actually comes to the Commerce Cloud and do the similar stuff. So I would say that maybe tomorrow, those unicorn projects will not be already unicorn projects. It will be like as usual. Okay, yeah, we have a complexity with the business. As of today, you need to have this transformation layer to normalize or maybe simplify the data and do some kind of changes over there. And with that, just a question, why you guys went with Azure? Just curious, why Azure? Maybe why not use some kind of MuleSoft, already built-in solution that can do similar stuff, or maybe just not even Azure, like AWS or some Google Cloud. Why Azure?
Yeah. It's a good question. There's a relatively easy answer for that one. Both clients were already using Azure. Oh no, I've got it wrong actually. Sorry, Tate uses Azure, but it's AWS over on V&A's side of things. Why that instead of MuleSoft or something? Part of it is license. There's a fair license implication of using MuleSoft. But then also we do have the fact that you want to stand up what's fit for purpose and not what's overkill, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
So, I mean, if I wanted to talk a little bit about Gatwick, or we can talk about Gatwick order amend and cancel and all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether you want to go a different direction.
No, we like it. We came here today to talk about the unicorn project. So whatever you have to share with us, we all here. So I don't know if Peter doesn't have any other questions before we go to the Gatwick. Peter, what do you say? Go to the Gatwick or another question?
I had a just in between question that just popped in my head. I'm curious so far if you've come across a project in your line of work where you're like, no, we can't do that. Like, or what's the closest one that you were like, I don't think that's possible. Like, and why did you think that originally, and then how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that is a good question. As time has moved on, I've certainly got to the point where it's not necessarily whether it's possible is the question. It's whether you should, whether it's a good idea. So for instance, we have had some projects come our way where it's a very specific vertical that has very specific requirements. And I mean, in fact, let's continue the ticketing example because I've spoke about it a bit. We've had some ticketing stuff come our way where there was no reason for Commerce Cloud within the mix. So this business was just selling tickets and nothing else. And so the vertical solutions in that marketplace where they have, I've got a little bit of background noise going on from it's gone now. Those vertical solutions in that marketplace are really fit for purpose. Quite often they're nice modern front ends that are selling these tickets. But the issue that you've got there is that you put Commerce Cloud in front of it, and all of a sudden you've got a really heavyweight commerce engine sitting on top of a ticketing system that could have done the job already. And you've just got an overcomplicated stack. It doesn't actually make sense. And therefore, from a commercial point of view, we're never going to win it. That's the other thing. We're not going to win that because the ticketing company will go, well, you can license our software and we'll charge you just a little bit more to use our web front end. And you kind of like, so that's going to cost less than half. What do we get with Commerce Cloud? Well, you get a slightly overcomplicated solution. And so that doesn't make sense. Where it does make sense is when you're selling something else. You're selling membership, you're selling retail as well. You want an overall experience. You want to discount one product with the other. You want to bundle them together, and they're coming from separate places. The only question is should, as opposed to is it possible. I don't think there's many challenges that aren't possible. If you look at the kind of stuff that we do these days in the world, from going to space years and years ago to electric cars to auto assist and not killing people and whatnot, I think we can solve most e-commerce problems within the world on that basis. So it's just a question of should, and then obviously there's normally budget and time. Just those small things.
Yeah, I agree. And like when now we speed up a kid and all the headless movement is like more those kind of projects that before were looking as complicated, now actually could get much easier because you can just delegate some pieces, not to Commerce Cloud, but to other platforms that might potentially do it better or solve the problem in the better way. So you can still have your head that will provide amazing UI UX experiences. You have Commerce Cloud who can do the best in its class, which is actually, at least for me, so promotions engine. Like it's one of the best in the class. And then when you can have Einstein and other stuff, right? And then I don't know what's actually, if there are other platforms that's something better in Commerce Cloud is doing. Should be. I mean, we are not in the perfect world, right? There are platforms that do better stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a bit of catching up to do from Commerce Cloud B2C in terms of we look at some of the headless APIs and they're iterating quickly and we know that needs a little bit more work. But you've still got Open Commerce API, which is still incredibly capable piece of kit that's been around, well understood. I mean, that's another thing that actually we use it a little bit, but we've on these projects I'm talking about, we probably haven't tapped that out because all the hooks and everything involved in those. There's a lot you can do there. But I mean, Gatwick's order, amend, and cancel. You're not meant to amend or cancel orders within Commerce Cloud. You're not meant to edit them. Do you know what I mean? Just what are you talking about? Kind of question. But
so how did you solve it?
Well, with that, it's a relatively easy solution as long as you plaster over it with decent front end. So, for instance, the client wanted one order reference. So if they amended it, they kept their order reference all the way through. But that's quite easy because you just add a custom attribute for that particular reference, and then you've got several orders underneath, right? And you just plaster over that with the front end. So effectively, it's a cancel and rebook model. You just cancel one order and create a new order, and then through custom attributes, you create a chain so that you can see the chain of difference between the orders and what happened. The only big complication there is that they didn't want to refund the whole previous order and charge it again, because if you do that to a customer, they get the next charge, but they don't get the refund for a week. So they're a few £100 out of pocket easily because of the way payments work.
And could be the fee as well, right? Because usually when you have that PSP systems, you have kind of those number of orders. Depends, of course, of the provider, but you might have, I don't know, let's say you have a contract that you will not exceed 1 million of transactions per month.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, like fee, other stuff. It could be the same. And when you said that without refund, it's actually similar to what I've seen for a few customers, again, from the mobile, when you can do the recontract, right? When you can, I don't know, upgrade of some plans that you want to do. If they want to simplify the process, they behind the scene, they just cancel and issue new one.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way. Cancel, new one.
Yeah, so that's what we did. The only difference being that payments had to be separate. So you only charged a little bit extra or charged a little, refunded a little bit under. And that did create some kind of reconciliation fun and games between the different orders. But obviously the front end of this whole thing had to be completely custom. It's an SFRA based project, but not really. It's there's not much of it left. Maybe a little bit of the basket. And I think that's one of the other things that I'd be focusing on if I was architects now is just not to think within the platform, right? It's just kind of, not to think within the reference application as well. We're going to find this with PWA Kit as well. Everyone will be given a reference application. It's like PWA Kit does this, PWA Kit does that. And sales are going to be like, oh, the more we customize, the more expensive it is. And it's like, yes, but let's think about the right solution first. Not let's just try and use, everything shouldn't start with what does PWA Kit do? Do you know what I mean? That's basically what I'm saying.
That's my follow-up question, actually, related to that. We talked with Drew in a previous episode about Headless, and then what its capabilities are and how customers and clients can use it to be really super creative to kind of go outside of the confines of Commerce Cloud. But I wonder, in your opinion, if it's kind of a two-part question. One would be, is the confines of the current Salesforce reference architecture actually a good thing in some cases where Headless is kind of like you can do whatever you want, as you said earlier, and then it might be tempting for people to literally do whatever they want and then spend too much time over engineering, and then not just as you correctly said, should we do this versus could we do this, and that balance, I feel like there's probably going to be some stumble area for people where they might decide to go headless where they probably shouldn't have, and then vice versa, like just as a platform, like what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. Inevitably there'll be some people that go headless that maybe could have been fine on a kind of more standard approach. The only thing I've got with that though is that it opens up more possibilities. I mean, like take Contentful as a CMS system, it's pretty good, it's pretty capable, or Ampliance, these kind of proper headless CMSs. And if they want to use that content in their mobile app as well and create consistency and all that kind of thing, then you're kind of pushing towards that headless route a little bit more, in my view anyway. I do think within 2-3 years, the maybe even less, could be 18 months to 2 years. The standard project will be a PWA based reskin as opposed to anything to do with SFRA. I just don't see it as much anymore. And I think it needs to go that direction because the result will be better. We can customize the front end faster. The developer market will be more open and wider. So you don't have to have that SFCC knowledge because loads of developers now, if I'm a React developer and I want to do cool stuff, I'm going to look at the SFCC platform and go, no thanks. Whereas if all they need to learn is the API, just like any other commerce platform or content platform or whatever, I think things are going to get a bit cooler, and I think that's going to be pretty useful. Clients should always be kind of controlled a little bit, maybe, but hey, that's hard. I mean, if you get a really brand-led client, it's like, no, I want the logo to be 1 pixel smaller and ever so slightly to the right. And I don't think you understand what we mean by black. This kind of thing. Headless stuff can be so much better for them because they've got the limits just aren't there in the same way. And it's not quite as expensive, I don't think, long term to alter.
Yeah, what I like also about this one that it's actually like you just need to hire some React developers, so that's it. And just maybe 1 week onboarding just to show them APIs, to explain them data model. This is like what brands will think. I swear, like, look, maybe there are a few brands that kind of potentially think already, or like in a few months, they will think like this. Okay, I have PWA, like the headless approach. It's React based. Fine, I will just get React developers and we will craft the solution like in few weeks and done, go online, right? That will be in all the minds of anyone. But I do agree even for the complex one, because even as you said, to manage the content, and it's also for IoT and all the way where we're going, right? I will have on the fridge, I mean, in few years, all modern fridges will have that. I think I already talked about this in one of the previous podcasts, but they will have a screen that will scan all the products, right? And I will say, okay, let me do this, and maybe I'll have already predefined integration with some Carrefour. Let's say it will be Carrefour, right? Because I buy everything from Carrefour, potentially. I'm not buying from Carrefour. I'm buying from Woolworths here in Sydney. But anyway, my point is that you'll have this kind of experiences that will be not just like laptop and phone, but there will be any digital screen that I can touch, see, or even talk with.
Well, a simple example. I mean, we're currently developing some headless stuff for Nintendo, and the reason they wanted to go headless as soon as possible is because their consoles are also going to be ahead, right? The store on the console is ahead, just like the website is ahead, just like their mobile app is ahead, right? So to have any other kind of setup just really doesn't make a lot of sense. But we should also recognize there's two flavors of headless, right? There is the PWA kit, kind of out the box, slightly constrained approach to headless with B2C, because you can't install any library you like, you can't use any framework you like, it's got limits. But then you can go proper headless, if I could call it that for whatever reason, where we're using Vercel and we're using Next.js and that kind of thing, and that's the stuff that we're using for that. And developers are even more excited about that because they're even more off the chain, so to speak.
Wait, Next.js is React based, right?
Yeah.
See, you still hire React developers. Okay, one more week extra. Bam,
But clients have always been like this, Oleg. So previously clients have gone, just find a couple of SFCC developers and employ them in house. And they start putting inline JavaScript and CSS and content assets, and then everything starts to explode, and they wonder what happened. It's happened forever.
Oh, I know that. I know those clients when they they have those teams that actually you open the assets. Oh, we have very slow assets. Why? I don't know. Can you review and improve performance? You go over there and you see hundreds of inline JavaScripts in the assets when platforms still allow that. A lot of CSS or everything's and you look at this yeah.
Yeah, you just need the important with the exclamation mark on all the CSS, right?
No. Control A, delete, Control S.
Start again. No, it's true. So I still think all the same issues will probably still be the same issues, just different technology, right?
True. Okay. I actually loved a lot what we spoke today. We touched a lot of different stuff. We spoke about 3 different customers, about data modeling, about the integrations, about also the ticketing system, how we can even manage the orders. I don't know, some jokes, other stuff between the topics, which I really loved, and it was super interesting. Rob, look, we usually have this what I call prime time, but Peter doesn't like to comment it's prime time. He would just use it like message to the community. Okay, you don't see it, but Peter is actually shaking his head, right? So he potentially doesn't agree, and it's good, right? We don't need to agree with each other all the time. That's why we are running it together. So anyway, Rob, like it's our prime time. It's a message to the community. So do you have anything you want to convey to anyone who hearing us today?
Yeah, sure. I 2 things really. One is simple, in that OSF is always hiring and looking for good people. So feel free to talk to me. But the second thing is and it comes back to your point earlier, Oleg, more than anything. I think I've really enjoyed doing these kind of slightly off the wall projects because they're more of a challenge, right? And most of the team that have implemented them that I talk to afterwards are just like, wow, that was a crazy project, but it was the one I enjoyed the most, right? So I think it's to not accept just all the boring kind of projects, and if you are an architect or a developer, to think of that in a wide sense. I develop solutions, I architect solutions, not I'm a Salesforce Commerce B2C architect, because at that point you've made your world too small. So that's all I'd say.
Thank you, Peter. What do you think about like that small circle that Rob mentioned about just SFCC? Like, do you agree or disagree? What's your point?
I can go either way, man. We can talk another hour about this for real.
Okay, cool. I think that will be just maybe another podcast we can organize with Rob, you and me, and just talk about like the circle and what could be like father planets, father spaces, I don't know, universes with other stuff that actually could help us to craft the best business solutions to help our customers whom we are dealing on our day-to-day basis. Anyway, what I want to say, thank you, Rob, for the great podcast. Thank you for being our guest today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Oleg. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Peter, as always, for hosting it together with me. Everyone, thank you once again, and see you in the next podcast. See you, guys.